podcast is brought to you by Tony Robbins Results Coaching. Are you ready to experience an extraordinary quality of life? Or maybe you're already doing well, but you know you can take your life to a whole new level. To do that, you have to set yourself up to win. You need a process, a way to consistently grow and produce the results that you need. That's what a Tony Robbins Results Coach can do for you. Whatever area in your life you want to change, your relationship, your health, your career, or your business, coaching is one of the most valuable tools you can have. It's an investment in yourself, and it can yield some of the highest returns. Tony Robbins Results Coaches are hand-selected and trained by the master of coaching, Tony Robbins himself, to have the skills that will empower you with supreme focus, powerful insight, and the accountability needed to achieve everything you've ever dreamed. To help you get started, Tony is offering podcast listeners a free results coaching strategy session with one of his top coaches. It's a $200 value, and you're getting it for free. Visit tonyrobbins.com/results. Schedule that free session today.
What do the greatest leaders of all time have in common? You may think it comes down to a certain sense of charisma or some inhuman level of talent, because that's what we've all been conditioned to think defines a leader. But superstars aren't the same thing as super leaders. In fact, the greatest leaders often fly under the radar and are actually easy to miss. Hey guys, it's Anna, Editorial Director for RRI. Welcome back to the Tony Robbins Podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with renowned author and leadership expert, Sam Walker. A former reporter, sports columnist, and sports editor, Sam founded the Wall Street Journal's prize-winning daily sports coverage. And most recently, he helped launch the journal's leadership column. He's the author of Fantasyland, a best-selling account of his time in Tout Wars, America's top fantasy baseball expert competition, of which he is a two-time champion. And in his latest book, The Captain Class, Sam profiles the greatest teams in history and identifies the secret sauce that drove these unconventional men and women to achieve massive success. Now he's sharing some of these incredible insights with us. We do a deep dive into the behavioral and psychological traits of these individuals and how they've been the driving force behind some of the most legendary teams in history. We discuss the myths about leadership and how to really identify and cultivate the leaders you see in your own organization, because it isn't always obvious. In fact, it rarely is. And as Sam reveals, once you do find these individuals, you need to understand how to effectively partner with them so that they assume a more autonomous role that can ultimately lead the entire team to success. All right, Sam Walker, welcome to the Tony Robbins Podcast. We're so excited to have you on.
Thanks, Anna. It's great to be here.
So I wanted to talk about how you originally decided to write this book called The Captain Class, the hidden force that creates the world's greatest teams. Did you stumble across the topic, or is this sort of like a long-term obsession of yours?
It was a long obsession. And it really began with a question, a nagging question that I just never heard an answer to that I thought was sufficient. So the story is I worked for the Wall Street Journal, and for about 10 years, I was a sports columnist. And my beat really was big championships, big events. And I was lucky enough to go all over the world and cover all kinds of events. And what I did was spend a lot of time with great teams at the top of their game. And I would listen to the interviews that they gave, and I would ask them these questions. Why is this team so good? What makes this team great? And I just never heard an answer that I thought really explained it. And this was always a puzzle to me. And finally, I decided that I wanted to look into this, and I wanted to figure out a way that I could see if there was some foundational DNA, something that all these great teams had in common. And then a second question came up, which is so many of the great teams that I'd been around had been amazing for 1 year, maybe 2 years. But then even with the same players and the same competition and strategy, they weren't able to sustain it. So I wanted to ask a second question as well, which is, once you become great, how do you stay that way? What is it that holds a team together and creates a culture, a chemistry inside a team that it can use and rely on to continue to win? So those were the two questions, and I stumbled into this thing very blindly. I thought, I'm going to write a column for the journal about this, 900 words. Maybe I'll study these teams for 2 weeks and try to come up with a list, and then I'll talk about what they had in common. And just to give you a sense of what happened after that and the rabbit hole that I wound up going down. That was 12 years ago.
Wow.
The column never ran. It turned into a book, and it took me that long to do the research and to figure out the answer.
Wow, that's incredible. So, one of the stories that you open the book with is about this sort of tipping point in, I'll say soccer, but it's football for the rest of the world, in the world of soccer / football. I'd love it if you could sort of tell us about that, that exact moment and what that taught you, one of the initial learnings that you had about what it is that makes a winning team.
Well, it was 1952, and back then, England was absolutely the world's ruling power in the sport of soccer. This team had never lost at home against any opponent from a foreign country, and they were absolutely dominant. They believed that when they played at home and they played their best, they could beat anybody, and this was an absolute belief among everyone in England. So they scheduled a friendly match with Hungary. Now, Hungary was a tiny nation at the time, really impoverished, going through a revolution and intense poverty, a small country. And this team from Hungary had been pretty good. They won the Olympic medal the year before, but they hadn't really played elite level competition before. So they came to Wembley, which is the heart and soul of English soccer, where they had undefeated, over the last 80 years. And everyone thought that it was going to be an absolute trouncing. The odds before the match were 500-1 in favor of the English. Nobody thought these Hungarians had a chance at all. This team came out and they were tiny. They were undersized. They had weird, low-slung soccer boots they'd never seen before, and these kind of tight-fitting tops. They looked very odd. No one was impressed by them. The English were even more confident when they walked out. But somebody told me, you have to get a hold of a tape of this match. So I got a hold of it, and he said, bring a stopwatch. And I said, why? He said, you'll see. So I started the tape, and I clicked the stopwatch, and I saw this incredible display of passing and tactics, and they scored a goal, the Hungarians, against the English. And I clicked the stopwatch, and it was 43 seconds. Was all it took them to score the first goal.
Wow.
They went on to destroy England. I mean, they destroyed them in this match, and no one could believe what they had seen. This team went on to be one of the greatest soccer teams in history. Over 5 years, they really only lost one match of consequence, and they were this indestructible force. And then all of a sudden, the revolution in Hungary